Hello and welcome to episode 5, season 2 of my podcast, Schlick Sports, made in the River City. I'm your host, Noah Schlicksup. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening in on a podcast platform, thanks for tuning in. In this episode, I speak with Nease head football coach Collin Drafts, and they've done an amazing job over there getting Nease back on the map, as they say. And they're coming off of a storybook playoff run, an incredible season, and Collin, he's got a great story himself. In the Hall of Fame at his old high school, college, and in the Big South Conference. Went on to play quarterback in the Arena Football League, has coached some great quarterbacks himself, and some fantastic programs. He's now getting Nease back to those dominant days as they were when Team Tebow was there. Their goal this year was to get back on the map. They did that and much more. Hope you guys enjoy our interview. Here it is. All right. So, again, thanks for coming on. I got a little bit of questions here about kind of your background before coaching, as well as what you're doing now at Nease. And I got to say, it's really impressive. Didn't know a lot about that stuff about you before, researching you a little more last night. But man, as a QB, I mean, I can see why I've had success with them now.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. Anytime I can get a chance to talk football and talk about Nease, I'm all about it. But yeah, I was very lucky. I grew up, I said I was very lucky because I had some really good coaches along the way, throughout my playing years. And I've got to credit my parents, obviously, too, for putting me in good positions, starting football early on and making sure that I had all the support I needed. I played quarterback my whole life. I'm from South Carolina. I played at a high school called Battery Creek High School, which is in Beaufort, South Carolina. And then I went on to play quarterback at Charleston Southern University in South Carolina, which is in the Big South Conference. And then after that, also played 7 years in the Arena Football League. So it was a lot of fun. Got to throw a lot of footballs over the years, and it was definitely a great experience.
Yeah, and you mentioned those first few places, Battery Creek, Charleston Southern, and the Big South Conference. You're in the Hall of Fame in all those places, which, I mean, over 10,000 yards passing your career, 90 touchdowns in college. Something I've always wondered about as a college player, because obviously I've never been there. I don't play football, and I'm just a fan. So I was wondering, as a college football player, we read on the outside about those long days, the schedules 5 to 9. So I'm wondering, if that's true, what kind of fueled you as a college athlete to get through that, and your thoughts on that style of coaching?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a wake-up call when you go from the high school level to the college level. They don't give you, there's no acclimation period where they're going to, kind of ease you into the process. I mean, right when and that's why a lot of guys nowadays will graduate high school early, December of their senior year, and enroll early. Actually, we had 2 players this year that have already done that. Grant Stevens, our tight end, is already at UCF. Evan Crenshaw, our punter, is already at Coastal Carolina. And the reason you do that is you get a whole semester jump on those other incoming freshmen that don't come in until fall camp, late July, early August. But like I said, it's a wake-up call. You're going to have a 6 a.m. morning lift session, then you're going to go to a position meeting, and then you're going to go to mandatory breakfast, then you have class all day, then you have another meeting, then you have another special teams meeting, and then you're on the field, then you have study hall, and then you better go home and go to bed, because you're going to have to do that all over again, really 3-4 days a week. And then you're traveling for a game, so there's an adjustment period. It was like that for me. But once I got acclimated to that process, I really loved it. I needed that structure. And I feel like a lot of people that make it to the level of playing college football kind of thrive off of that and need that structure as well. Here I am. I've been out of college, 14 years now, and I find myself missing that structure. So we try to, everywhere I've been as a head coach, and especially at Nease, we try to replicate that college style structure as much as you can. It is not the same. These kids are not on scholarship. They're 14 to 18 years old. They're high school kids. So it is a couple, click down a couple notches, so to speak. But I mean, I can tell you that, our off-season process right now is pretty strenuous for all of our players, and even in season as well. So but it takes what it takes if you want to be good.
Yeah, and I'm going back to your days in college here quickly. I always wondered, so as a fan, and even as a reporter, I with not much experience there, what are some things that people may not ask about or realize that go on behind the scenes as a college athlete?
Right. Oh man, that's a really good question. I mean, obviously I've already touched on the amount of time. I think the amount of time in general do people, the casual fan will cut on, ESPN on Saturday and watch college football all day. I mean, I'm like that, and you're rooting on your team and you're cheering those guys on when they do something great. And then unfortunately, you're beating them down verbally when they're doing something bad. But do you really realize that that's a 19 to 20, 20-year-old kid for the most part who has an 8 a.m., statistics class, and then he's got history after that, and he's got study table, and then he's putting in all these hours to try to be great at football, and then he's really a bona fide celebrity as well. If you're at, the highest of levels, it is a tough thing for that age group to deal with. And that's why you see, a lot of times now at the Power Five level, that those programs are investing a lot of money and a lot of people into taking care of those players, academic advisors, strength and conditioning coaches, tutors. I mean, if you make it to that level, you've got everything in place to help you succeed, but it is a full-time job and you don't have time for a job. And that's why I think too, we don't have to get into the whole NIL deal, but at least now guys can get some money in their pocket because you don't have time for a job. If you play college football, it's a full-time job, and more. So that's probably the biggest thing that people don't realize.
Oh yeah, you gotta love the NIL deals for those guys because, as you mentioned, that
Right.
takes up a ton of time, and I mean, you don't really realize it as a fan. It's hard to think sometimes that those kids that are playing in these 65,000 seat stadiums are kids, and it's
They
kind of
really are. Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
crazy to like you're thrown into the spotlight there, and there's got to be a lot of pressure that comes with it, which makes it
Right.
all the more impressive when they perform at such a high level.
I agree.
And so just to hit the highlights of what happened, you mentioned you went on to play in the Arena League with
Right.
Jacksonville Sharks. You
I
played
did.
you
Yeah.
played here. Is that kind of what got you involved in the area a bit?
Yeah. So I bounced around throughout the years. My first year in the Arena League was 2007. And from 2007 until 2013, 14, I kind of dotted the map, which is really neat. I got to meet a lot of good people. Actually, one guy who was still on my coaching staff at Nease, and then our defensive coordinator that just left to go to Arkansas State, Coach G. Both of those guys were on the first arena football team that I ever played for, and it was all the way out in Washington State in 2007. So that relationship has lasted over 15 years, and now we work together. So that was the neatest part about it for me. But yeah, in 2012, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 2012. I played for the Jacksonville Sharks for the last half of the year. That was my first time living in Jacksonville. I had visited here before, really enjoyed it. Never knew, that 8 years, 7, 8 years later, I would, come all the way back and end up as the head coach at Nease. But, I love it here. And I'll tell you that playing for Jacksonville was probably, one of the best overall experiences that I had in the Arena League. When you talk about the arena downtown and the atmosphere that the Sharks have at their home games, it was a lot of fun to play for that team.
Yeah, and they've had success as well.
Right,
So you went on, played in Orlando a bit, and then I think you
right,
called it quits there. And I'm
right.
wondering after that, how do you kind of make that transition into coaching and how that sort of come to be?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the neat part about playing arena football is I was actually already coaching while I was playing because the arena football season runs in the spring, pretty much March
Sure.
until August. So when I was done playing college football, I did GA for 2 years and coached the quarterbacks at Charleston Southern to finish up my degree. And I would go off and play in the Arena League. And then when I was done coaching at Charleston Southern, I got right into coaching high school football. So I would play in the spring and then come back to South Carolina and coach. And it really wasn't until 2011 when I moved down to Orlando and had the opportunity to coach high school football in Orlando at a very high level. It was at Olympia High School where that really kind of grabbed onto me, and I realized very quickly that that coaching was my passion. I was on the tail end of my playing career, and as the next year or two went on, I decided, you know what, it's time for me to hang it up. I'm going to pursue coaching full time, and then that's when I started teaching as well. I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher, a high school teacher, and a coach. That's what my dad was. So it was time for me to hang up the cleats and transition to teaching and coaching full time. And then so now I've been doing both, going on 9 years now. So
Yeah, and man, you've had a lot of success as well. You were offensive coordinator, quarterback coach to start out, and I
right.
mean, success has followed wherever you've gone. You mentioned Olympia there. You guys had an incredible season. I can't think of the record off the top of my head, but as you moved into more of a head coaching role, what are some of
Right.
the things you try to emphasize and build in the program?
Yeah, I've had three different experiences as a head coach. I was an offensive coordinator for 5 years at two different schools in Orlando. First head coaching job was at East River High School in 2016. And so I came in to a situation where they hadn't had much success in football at all, over the years. So I guess it was a perfect situation for me because I was a young head coach. They needed somebody to kind of, inject some energy into the program and make those kids believe that they could win. And man, I loved every bit of it. I inherited a great senior class at East River that wanted to win, and they were going to do everything that myself and the coaching staff told them to do, and that's what they did. And we went out and went 6-5. That one year that I was there and made the playoffs, and it was a phenomenal year. It was really
Yeah.
neat, and so it was about the best first year I could have asked for as a head coach. And then just the way things worked out, I didn't anticipate only being there for 1 year, but I had an unbelievable opportunity to move back to South Carolina and take the head coaching job at AC Flora High School, which is in Columbia, South Carolina. And so it was the best decision I ever made. And the reason I say that is, as I went up there with only 1 year of head coaching experience under my belt, and I thought I already had it all figured out. I was still young at the time and inexperienced as a head coach. And so I thought I could take that blueprint that I had used at East River and just, apply it like exactly to AC Flora. And I couldn't be more wrong. And so my first year as the head coach there, we went 0-10. Like we lost every game, and it was terrible. And I made a ton of mistakes. And looking back on it now, again, I'm glad that happened to me because I learned about myself as a coach and really as a person, having to go through that 0-10 struggle, because I had to regroup going into that next year and say, okay, it was a pretty big time program and a big area for football. And if we would have followed that up with another 0-10, 2-8, 1-9, whatever, I probably would have gotten fired. So my livelihood of my career was on the line. And so there were a lot of innovative things that we came up with to right the ship, so to speak. Again, we had to make the players believe that they weren't really a 0-10 football team. We needed to work harder. We needed to fix all the schematic errors we were making. And it's a hard thing to recover from when you lose every game. And so going into that season in 2018, we actually lost the first game, but we were close. We lost the second game and we were close. So we lost 12 games in a row. And then we won that one game, and it was just like everything clicked for the players. And it was really neat because we went on and to win 9 games in a row after that and won our district championship. They call them regions up in your league is called your region in South Carolina, but it would be the equivalent of winning your district. So we won 9 games in a row, which at the time was a school record, excuse me, and made the second round of the playoffs. And just to see the reward of the kids, battling through all that adversity was really neat. It was really neat. And again, short-lived. I didn't know I was going to be leaving and take the Nease job, But 2 years after that, in 2020, the COVID year, AC Flora won the state championship. They won the 4A. They won the 4A state championship. And those were the freshmen. That senior class that won the state championship were freshmen when we went 0-10. And they were sophomores when we went 9-2. And so those seeds were kind of planted. And more credit to Coach Dustin Curtis and his coaching staff, who came in and took it to a whole different level after I left, and had a great year in 2019, and then won a state championship in 2020. But it's just neat to see how that whole thing kind of played out, where you could have a freshman class that came in and lost every game, and then 4 years later won a state championship. So it was really neat to look back, and having played a small part in that, I was proud.
I got to say that turnaround sounds a little familiar.
Right.
But, and by the way, I apologize if you're hearing any background noise over here. I got 3 siblings and it's bedtime over here.
That's all good, man. Yep. Not a problem.
But quickly, I want to touch on the QBs you've coached. They've had a lot of success under you everywhere you've went. Just you've coached here. Hayden Griffiths at West Orange High School, played at BYU. Woody Barrett went to Auburn, and you had a couple other guys that went on to play in college, and now Marcus Stokes, who's a top 10 QB in the nation. So what's your approach, coaching these quarterbacks? And I'm sure your experience plays a big factor in that. And also, do any of those guys share some similarities there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The first one for me, though, was DeAndre Francois. And I'm such a big believer in timing is everything and fate. And it just so happens that I, get offered an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator at Olympia High School. And DeAndre's coming into his freshman year, and he wasn't even going to play for the school. He was going to play Pop Warner his freshman season, which is actually very common in Orlando. And I saw him throw the ball one time, and I could tell right away that he was going to be a phenom. And I had to convince him to come play for the high school, and then the rest is history. But he really was the one for me that made me understand or tap into my passion to coach quarterbacks and really coach high school football. So I really owe him, a lot of credit. He was a special kid, and I had a unique bond with him. I had the strongest bond up to that point, with him, compared to any other player I had coached. So moving forward, I really knew that I wanted to find kids like that I could help and they could help me. And I just think that I've been so blessed and so lucky to have kids put in my path, that I've been able to invest in them and teach them what I know, and they make me a better coach as well. So I had DeAndre at Olympia. The first quarterback I had, you said it, Hayden Griffiths at West Orange was really fun to coach. Very smart kid. Woody Barrett ended up playing for me at West Orange his junior and senior year. He was an All-American like DeAndre was, and went on to play at Auburn. Woody was a character. He was just kind of a goofball, very energetic. Teammates loved him, always kind of joking around, but a freak athlete. I mean, this kid was 6'2", 230 pounds, and could run a 4.5 at the high school level. And he made me a better coach, because that was the first time I had utilized or been able to utilize a quarterback who was the best athlete on the field at all times, right? So the quarterback run game that we even run now evolved through learning how to properly utilize a player like Woody Barrett. His statistics his senior year were phenomenal, and we went on to we made the 8A semifinals his senior year. Then after that, I had some really good quarterbacks, even before Marcus as a head coach, guys that were maybe not top 10 in the country and All-Americans, but guys who were good quality program kids that were, your good high school quarterback. They're going to give you everything I got. And so that was unique too, because I had been so lucky to have, a couple All-Americans my first 6 years coaching, that I thought I was, some great coach, and really they were just talented kids. So I had to become a better coach to coach the normal high school quarterback that you're going to have. So back to the original question, I do use my experience as a player through the years. And then it's neat for me now and good for me now when I'm coaching quarterbacks or doing a camp or something that I could point to these guys and say, I was able to play a small part in their growth and their maturation process, and be able to be relatable to the next quarterbacks coming up, through the ranks.
And I gotta ask, I did a quick Google search. Is that the same DeAndre Francois that went on to play at Florida State?
Correct. Yep, that's him. Yep. So
Wow.
DeAndre Francois, he was played for me his freshman and sophomore years at Olympia High School, and then I left with the entire coaching staff. But he was the ACC Freshman of the Year. He was on a path to really be what Florida State quarterbacks have been before him. You had EJ Manuel, you had his name's escaping me right now, starting quarterback for the Saints, but you had all these guys, Christian Ponder. They had 3 or 4 first round draft picks under Jimbo Fisher, and DeAndre really was the next one. And 2017 they're playing Alabama the first game, he blows his knee out, so he's done for the year. And then Jimbo leaves, and if you're a Florida State fan, you know what happens after that. The rest is history, and they're still trying to recover from that. Well, really, in my opinion, the catalyst for all that, the last 5 years of Florida State's woes was when DeAndre, tore up his knee versus Alabama in week 1. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic for discussion.
I thought I recognized the name there. And
right. Yep.
Yeah, so place the dot with the Google search though.
Gotcha. Yep.
Anyways, you mentioned you were coaching in South Carolina there before you took the job at Nease. So up in South Carolina, how do you end up, first hearing about that Nease opening and getting to take the job?
Yeah, it was an easy decision for me. I'm super passionate about football, really am. I've played since I'm 6 years old. I love the game, but I'm proud of the fact that every decision that I make now is run through the filter of what's best for me and my family. And I've got my daughter's 9. My daughter Abigail is 9. My son Cannon is 5. And they were living in Jacksonville at the time. So as much as I, loved what I was able to accomplish with my career as a coach in Columbia, South Carolina, I was already being pulled to Jacksonville. And so what I did is I told myself, if a great opportunity was to present itself in Jacksonville for me to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator, or even a quarterback coach, then I'm going to pursue it. And the Nease job opened up. I've got a buddy of mine that I had known for, probably, 7 or 8 years, who actually played on the state championship team with Tim Tebow back in 2005. So he was my first call. I said, hey, the Nease job is open. What do you think? And he gave me the whole rundown of the history and the tradition and the struggles they had, had of late leading up to 2019. And, I took the interview, was offered the job, and weighed my options, and then and dove right in, and here I am now. So that's kind of how that whole thing, played out for me. And I don't regret any of it. I love the decision that I've made, and I've loved every day that I've been here so far.
So you got to Nease, and those first couple seasons for you were, sounds similar to AC Flora, where it only won 3 games in those first 2 seasons combined. But
2 games. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
But when you first got there, like, they hadn't had a winning season since, they hadn't won a playoff game since, a few years after Tim Tebow left. And, hadn't had a winning season since 2015, whole graduated class had gone by.
Right.
So what were your first steps you kind of took through those years to kind of build the program up?
Yeah, it was a unique challenge, again, because, I had gone from, East River in Orlando, and then AC Flora in Columbia, and then I'm in a whole new environment all over again, at Nease and, in St. Johns County. And so I really had learned that I couldn't take the AC Flora blueprint exactly and apply it to Nease. There's always bits and that you'll plug and play and it'll work. But I think that's the biggest thing that I brought with me is I need to get in, and we're going to start working hard right away. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter where you go. You have to work extremely hard. You have to try to outwork your opponent. There's no secret formula or magic pill that you can take to kind of circumvent that. So we did that right away. But I think what I did differently was really kind of survey the situation and the atmosphere that I'm in and the culture that I'm walking into of the school, of the football program, of the school, of the community, and really of St. Johns County football in Jacksonville. I really didn't know anything about it. Um, so that was the first thing. And then, right away, I came in late. I got hired really right before spring football in 2019. I actually was still living in South Carolina at the time. So that first spring football, May of 2019, I would teach for 3 days in South Carolina, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I would drive all the way down, which was about 4 to 5 hours from Columbia to Jacksonville. We would practice Wednesday, Thursday, and then I would drive back to Columbia and then have to teach again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I was just taking days off that I had saved up, and I did that for the whole month. Then you're trying to build a staff, you're trying to get to know your players, and it was a whirlwind. I mean, it was. I think I'm thinking back on it now, and not to mention it was the first year that Nease football was going to be district, which at the time, we had 3,200 students. So it was Nease, it was Bartram Trail, it was Mandarin, it was Oakleaf, and it was Sandalwood. So you're talking about the four most talented teams, four of the most talented teams, in my opinion, and all of Jacksonville were in that district. So that was a challenge in itself. And before you knew it, the season was over and we were 1-9. But the good thing is, as we know, I've been there before, so it was time to get back to work. And that's kind of how we got through year one, at least.
Yeah. And then jumping forward to this season, you've talked about getting guys to buy in a little bit. And I remember after you guys caught it, a lot of the Jacksonville scene off guard, beating Ponte Vedra week 1. I remember I was getting ready to broadcast that game, or at least try to, when Creekside came to visit, and you had a wide receiver, Ryan McGuff, who played at Creekside the previous year. So talked with him a little bit, and I remember him saying, I honestly think we can go undefeated this year. And that caught me off guard. I was like, well, really? And it turns out, I mean, you guys went on to have a heck of a run. That Creekside game, though, ended up being kind of tough. Those for you guys, the defense, nothing really went right for you guys in the second half.
For sure. Yeah, it was a bad half.
In a way, did that game kind of end up being a bit of a wake-up call? And, how do you guys turn it around so quickly after that?
Certainly. Yeah. I think just kind of going back to what you said about our guys believing it. Ryan was really only in our program. He came in right before the spring, so he was only he didn't experience anything before that. But one thing I have to give especially our seniors credit for, we had 36 seniors this year too. They went 1-9 in 2019. We went 1-7 in 2020 and had COVID, the season canceled. I mean, it was terrible. But coming into this past year, they truly believed that we could win every game that we played. And that was a credit to how hard they had worked. They had kind of built up that armor, so to speak, and that confidence. And they really knew that we were going to do something. When you play your biggest rival, the game one, first game of the year, it's really a unique situation. It's kind of like playing your Super Bowl the first game, and it's not really ideal because you want to have that. You want to, if you could, get a couple games under your belt. So all the players and even the coaches are kind of tense going into that game. You don't know what you have. You've had one preseason game, and it's the biggest game of the year. So, of course, we were excited to win that game. That was the first time we had beat Ponte Vedra in 11 years. So it was a huge deal. And then you kind of have to come down from that, that high, so to speak, and you have to turn right back around and play Creekside, which is arguably, our second or third biggest rival behind PV, St. Augustine, and then Creekside. It's a huge game, though. It's a huge game. Yeah. And so our guys were confident, and I was worried, though, about that coming off the big game the week before, and exactly what we thought could happen happened. We did play well the first half. It was a close game, but we turned the ball over 3 times in a row to start the second half. We had a fumble, We had we had 3 fumbles in a row. We had 3 fumbles. We had the ball 3 times and fumbled 3 times in a row. And anytime that you do that, if you're going to give the other team the ball that many times, you're not going to win the game. And a credit to them, they played well and they were better than us that night. But that was the wake up call, because after that, we had another one later. We lost to Creekside. We won 5 games in a row, if I remember it correctly, 4 or 5 in a row. And that's when we really got rolling and realized that we could be a good football team.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned, you went on a run after that. Your defense,
Right.
especially, they gave up 35 that game.
Right.
9 out of your next 10 games, they allowed 21 points or fewer. So they really went on
Correct.
a run.
Right.
And you finished the season 7-3. And
Right.
still, though, in the playoffs, you're underdogs. Spruce Creek had only lost, let's see, 1 game. All the teams you faced had only lost
Excuse
1
me.
game.
Right.
And what allowed you guys really to end up prevailing in that Spruce Creek game specifically?
I think all the adversity and all the challenges that we had been really almost for 3 years, and especially this year, I go back to the game that really made our season, I think, was the Fletcher game. We were on I'm looking at the schedule on my phone. 1, 2, 3, 4. We were on a 4-game winning streak. We played St. Augustine tough, and they beat us. But going into the Fletcher game, it was our final district game. We were undefeated. We knew that if we won the game, we would be outright district champs, which would be a huge deal following what we had done the 2 previous years. We were on the road. If you win your district, you get a home playoff game. And it was a brutal loss. I mean, we had the lead with 4 minutes left and missed a field goal, gave them the ball back, and we had a 6-point lead. And they marched the ball all the way down the field, scored a touchdown, and kicked an extra point with 5 seconds left to beat us. And it was by far the worst loss I've ever had as a coach. I struggled to find the words to tell the team after the game, because not only did that happen, but then we went into a bye week. And anytime you lose a game like that, you wish you could play right away and get that done with. So we had to sit with that for 2 weeks. Then we had to go on the road and play an extremely talented Fleming Island team that could beat anybody on their schedule. Not won that game, there was a chance we wouldn't have even made the playoffs. But the way that the team responded to go on the road to beat Fleming Island by 21 points and really dominate that game, that was when I knew, like, wow, like we this is going to be bigger than what it's already been. So when we were faced with the challenges late in the game of the Spruce Creek game, we had the Spruce Creek game in hand. It was 20, we were up by 14 points with 6 minutes left, and we had the ball inside our own 10-yard line. If you just get a field goal there, if you get a touchdown there, that game's probably over. We fumble the ball. We go backwards. We miss a field goal. Next thing you know, they start rolling and they tie the game up, and we have to, execute a 2-minute drill to go all the way down the field, kick a field goal, which we had struggled to do the past couple of games. Kanan Kimball comes in and nails a 25-yarder to put us up by 3. And then they pull off the, Boise State hook and ladder and almost score on it with 15 seconds left. Ben Bogle came in and blocked the field goal to win the game. And you couldn't have really written a neater story. But I think that all the challenges we had been through when the game was on the line, we had to make huge plays. We were ready. We were ready for that moment. And same thing with the Niceville game. We had to go on the road. It's already a 5-hour drive. The bus broke down halfway. Yeah, I mean, you name it. It's almost like a movie, right? And we hadn't had a fourth quarter comeback all year long. And Niceville is widely regarded as one of the toughest places to play in the state of Florida. You're going all the way out to the Panhandle. It's a different time zone. It's like a whole different world out there. It's like you're in Alabama. And, we're down by 7 points going into the fourth quarter and haven't had a comeback win all year long. And we pulled it off. And that was the biggest win, really for Nease since they, had made it to, the fourth round or won the state championship in, probably, 12 or 13 years. So.
Yeah. And I remember that, like, everyone in Jacksonville they're behind you guys at that point, I believe.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Like, you were one of the last teams standing from the area, and it was just
Right.
incredible to follow. You guys ended up losing that next game, but
Right.
overall, that was an incredible season for you guys. What was your main takeaway through all of that about, like, what are you going to remember about that team?
Man, my main takeaway, that is a really good question. If I had to narrow it down to the most important thing that I will remember about, that season alone will be, and this sounds really cliche, but it really is the relationships that myself and that the other coaches were able to build with those seniors, because we had 36 guys that almost all of them had been, you know, in a team meeting with me in May of 2019 and didn't know who I was from anybody. I was a new head coach, and we laid out a plan that Nease football could be great again. And what we talked about going into this year was to put Nease football back on the map, is kind of what we called it. And they never wavered. They didn't waver through 1-9 in 2019. They didn't waver through 1-7 in COVID and having our last game canceled in 2020. And they didn't waver through, a grueling off season that started in January 2021 and didn't end until we lost to Buchholz. So anytime, I hope I'm lucky enough to coach for another 25 to 30 years. And I know that I'm going to have challenges throughout, along the way. And I'm going to be sitting there going like, dang, how are we going to get through it? But I can always think back to this past year and think about the kids that were able to power through all those challenges and the relationships that we had. And that's really what makes it all worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, they've set the standard. They've set the bar there. You mentioned putting Nice back on the map. You guys did
Right.
exactly that.
Right.
And now in April, I mean, it's the off season, spring workouts, summer coming up here. So it's the
Right.
middle of the off season, and you just launched a website to help recruit some
Right.
of the seniors this upcoming season. So I
Right.
wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's a lot of things as a high school football coach that get put on our plate and that we try to accomplish. And front and center of that is always, well, you better win football games, because if you don't win, you're eventually going to get run out of town. But there's so much more that goes along with running a football program, and that might even be more important than winning, and player development on and off the field, and putting our kids in position to go off and get recruited and play college football is at the top of our list. And so I wanted to come up with something that was unique, that was different, which is really our motto and mantra at Nease, and that could put our players at the forefront of the social media world to be visible. And so the idea, I was lucky enough to partner up with a company that helped us build the website, and came up with the idea to, hey, we're just going to call it recruitnease.com. And now if a college football coach, and this is the time of year that they're doing it, I can't tell you how many college football coaches I have that will text me throughout the day and say, hey, coach, send me your spring practice dates and send me your list of 2023 rising seniors. And so now I don't have to be scrambling around, through all my papers and whatnot. I can say, hey, I just text them the link, recruitnease.com. And they're like, wow, that before. That's really cool, because they can just go to the website on their phone or on their computer. It's got all of our guys. It links them to their huddle profile, their height, their weight, their GPA, a picture of them, and they got everything they need, So I'm excited about it. The players are excited about it. It'll be a great tool for us to be able to promote our players.
Yeah, and I checked it out too. It is really convenient. It's got all the guys there, everything college coach would need, their contact info, everything. I
Right.
gotta imagine that makes things easier for everybody involved. And
Yeah,
then I
definitely.
got one more question for you here,
Right.
and it's about this upcoming team after
Right.
such a big year for you guys next year.
Right.
You're looking to carry that over this year. What should the expectations be from everybody else?
The expectations of people outside of Nease football.
And what are the expectations inside Nice football?
That's you're good. You're good at your job. What we're talking about within our football program is and what people should expect. So, I mean, they're kind of one and the same. Obviously, there's a couple of things we're going to keep close to the vest, but, our goal last year was to put, Nease football back on the map, and we did that. And we definitely do not plan on being, one and done or one hit wonder. We want to be, and we will be consistent, so we're going to be competing for district championship. We're in a new district, we're in the 4A suburban, district. I don't know if you know how they're splitting them up now. It's a kind of a unique situation, but anyway, we have a new league, and the league is us, Flagler, Palm Coast, which is down south, and Ponte Vedra is a district game, so you're looking at two district games, and we're going to compete to win the district championship. We're going to compete for a playoff spot, and we're going to compete again to make a playoff run. And so anyway, those will be tangible goals that I believe that we can reach, and that we are talking about, that we're not going to shy away from. And ultimately, though, long term, what we're working towards is to make Nease football, one of, if not the premier, County, and all of, greater Jacksonville, like it has been done before. At one time it was, so there's no reason that it can't be done again. That's one of the reasons that, I wanted to come down and take this job. And I feel like that we have the right people here. We have the right support. The community down here is phenomenal. The facilities are great. The players are balled in and working as hard as I've ever seen. And I feel like we can do great things here.
Absolutely. And I got to say, it's cool to see Nease getting back on its feet and becoming that kind of program again. Because, I mean, I knew of Nease High School when I was 8 years old living in Iowa because of Tim
Right.
Tebow.
Tim Tebow. You're exactly
And,
right.
I mean, he put you guys on the map. You're bringing them back. And this
Right.
team, I think you guys are going to be fun to watch this year. I appreciate you taking the time. This lasted longer than anticipated, but I appreciate you sticking around, man, and answering my questions for me.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me, and you're definitely, in my opinion, well on your way to doing big things on the reporting end as well. So anytime you'd like to come out and check out practice or a game, or maybe get players on or something, we're wide open for it. Just let me know.
All right, I appreciate it, Coach. I'll definitely hit you up on that.
Okay, man. Thanks. Good luck and take care.
All right, you too. Thank you guys for listening to my latest episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to follow, leave a good review, share with your friends if you're listening on a podcast platform. Thank you guys, no matter where you're at, for tuning in. I'll see you next time here in the River City.